Welcome to AATAB Online, a virtual reading series presented by Asian American theater artists. My name is Sarah Shin, and I'm the lead producer. AATAB is a social collective that seeks to empower and connect Asian American, Pacific Islander American, Mena American, and Kanaka Maoli theater artists in the greater Boston area. We've gathered here today. I'm hearing that I'm breaking up. This is better. We've gathered here today we've gathered theater artists from the AATAB community, the Boston theater community, and friends across the country to explore plays by Boston-based Asian American playwrights to present here on Zoom, Facebook Live, and HowlRound TV. Today, you are seeing a reading of Waiting for Kim Lee, a 10-minute play by Vivian-Liu Somers and directed by Allison Chu. For this reading, we would like to amplify Asian Artists for Black Lives fundraiser, led by the Asian American Artists of Hamilton. All contributions will be split evenly between Black Lives Matter Global Network, Transgender Law Center, Louisville Community Bail Fund, and Black Voters Matter Capacity Building Institute, providing immediate and long game support by bailing out protesters, Black Lives Matter, safeguarding Black voters, and protecting the Black trans community. Depending where you're watching us from, there will be a link to donate directly to that fundraiser, either in the Zoom room or on the page you're watching or in the comments. And then following the reading, we will be moving into an extended panel discussion with our cast and creative team, and also special guests Karina Wen and Audrey Serafin to gather some thoughts, continuing the conversation on how we can all gather together to create anti-racist theater and bring equity to the theater and the community as a whole. If you want more info about AATAB, we're on Facebook and Instagram at AATABOSTON. And now, enjoy the show.
They're all waiting there in patiently, and when I reach that place, call the halfway tree. Not one soul recognizes me.
Does anyone, hey, does anyone have a pen I could borrow? I just want to use it just for a minute. Oh, hey, do you mind if I use your pen?
What?
Do you mind if I use your pen to sign in for the audition? There's no pen here.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Here you go.
Oh, okay, great.
Excuse me, are you reading for the character of Kim Lee?
Well, if you look around, I'm not reading for the burly security guy or the falafel vendor. So yeah, I'm reading for the Kim Lee role, probably just like you and every other Asian woman here.
Okay. Me me my mo moo. 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 Thank you. Nitro bars, a healthy alternative for the family on the go. Nitro bars, a healthy alternative for the family on the go. Nitro bars, a healthy alternative for the family on the go.
You mind?
Mind what?
Nitro bars, the healthy alternative for the family on the go.
Oh, sorry. I'll try to be quieter. I was wondering, what's my motivation?
What?
You know, I'm trying to think like the character does, what surrounds me, what are my given circumstances, what is Kimley's motivation?
Well, I guess Kim Lee wants to feed her family on the go with healthy gluten-free nitro bars.
Yeah, I get that, but my acting teacher says that you really have to understand the motivation, the want, the need for the character.
Okay. She really wants and needs to feed nitro bars to her family on the go?
I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. This is my first big time national audition, you know? It's commercial, and I just took an acting class at my community college, and my teacher thought I had real potential. She suggested I look around Craigslist for acting gigs, and there I saw it. Actress needed to portray Asian mom for a national commercial. And I said, I'm Asian. People ask me if I have kids, even though I don't, so why not? So, how did you hear about this?
My agent told me about it.
Wow, you have an agent. That is so awesome. If you don't mind me asking, how did you get one?
I kind of mind. I'm trying to read the script here.
Oh, okay, sorry to bother you. It's just that you don't see many opportunities for Asian women, and if you have an agent, maybe there really is a market, and maybe there's a chance I could make it. You know, maybe I can finally stop lying to my mom on what I'm doing with my life. And maybe I don't have to go back to working at Panda Express. Maybe I don't have to wear that.
Okay, listen. I'll tell you how I got an agent if you just be quiet for a minute, okay? I was in a local production of South Pacific, and an agent saw me and signed me up.
Oh, South Pacific, cool. Oh, were you the nurse, Nellie Forbush, who falls in love with the French farmer? What a great role.
Not exactly.
Oh, so you were one of the nurses then, still. A lot of fun, huh? I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair.
No, I had a featured role. I was Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary, who's... Oh, right, the Polynesian island native who sold trinkets to sailors and then pimped out her daughter to the cute white lieutenant? Wow. You had a whole song to yourself? That's cool. That's cool.
Well, actually, I had 2 songs. But wait, did you say you were lying to your mother? I mean, what does she think you do?
Well, she doesn't really approve of this whole acting thing. She considers it a waste of time, a hobby that keeps me from reaching my full potential. She thinks I'm going to finish up community college and transfer to another college and start studying the LSATs.
The what?
The LSATs, the test to go to law school. Then I would graduate from a great school, become a kick-ass lawyer with a great job, find a lawyer husband, settle down in the suburbs, have 2.5 grandkids, you know, living the dream. But instead, I finished up my acting class. I left my community college, and I'm going to audition for everything I can and hope to make a name for myself. Now that is living my dream. Juneau, I was in a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical too once, The King and I.
Really? What role?
I played number 10 wife. I did get to hold up a cloud during the Uncle Tom's Cabin dance number. The costumes, wow, they were really beautiful. Though, I think they were more Japanese than they were Siamese. No? I don't think they have kimonos there. Oh well, that must have been exciting getting an agent. Wait, have I seen you in anything?
The Star Players production of South Pacific? Yeah, actually, it's been really hard. I mean, there are really not a lot of roles out there for Asian women who are not the sweet young thing, or people willing to cast Asian women who are not the sweet young thing. And my mom knows what I do and is supportive, but she also asks, why don't take every dragon lady role out there? I have accent, you do it too. Even though she only spoke English to us as kids, so we would sound like everyone else in school. She doesn't get that representation matters.
What do you mean?
Look, we have to show that we can be more than the exotic character from some foreign culture, the representation of an entire ethnicity, or the carrier of viruses. I mean, we could bring life to characters that show what it's like to be Asian American and not just Asian. How we can fit in as the model minority or not, to show that we are complicated, diverse, real. Because we exist in the present, we can speak English flawlessly. And if we go back to our country, chances are it's the USA. We don't only eat dumplings and sushi. We also care if our kids eat healthy, nutritious, gluten-free nitro bars fortified with vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
Sorry, I got so worked up. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
No, I get it. In every student production, I got asked to play the Chinese nurse, the Thai nanny, the Filipino maid, the interchangeable subservient Asian written by a non-Asian.
Yep.
I wanted to be Juliet. No. Laura Wingfield. Eliza Doolittle. Center stage and not stage left, bowing and asking, that be all, Missy Joan?
You know, dead white guys wrote all your dream roles.
Wow. I never even thought of that. Shit. What a bummer. Yeah, maybe there should be more Asians out there writing those juicy roles. Then we could speak whole sentences, monologues even, and not have to serve anyone tea or dumplings and sushi.
Hey, why don't we?
Serve tea?
No, that's not what I meant.
Serve dumplings and sushi?
No. Write our own plays. Breathe life into our own characters. Speak our own truth.
You're crazy. I wouldn't know where to begin.
Hey, hear me out. You start small and you write about something that's real, that's personal. Draw from your own life. What if we wrote about this?
What?
Well, this, being in this room, waiting to audition to be the Asian mom in the nutrition bar commercial, you know, not living up to our own mother's expectations, talking about what it means to be seen, to be heard, to be part of the conversation. And maybe you could start being honest with your mom about what you are, what you want, and who you really are.
Well, she did always say I was a good writer. She meant to write out lawyer stuff, but still, and I know just how it would start. Does anyone have a pen?
Balihay may call you any night, any day.
I'm muted.
There you are.
Oh God. My first time doing live stream and board op at the same time. A new challenge. But it's not about me, it's about you guys. Congrats to Vivian and Michelle and Allison for working on this play these past couple weeks.
Thank you.
I feel like we should just kind of go right into it. So I want to bring Audrey and Karina back in here.
Yay.
Thank you guys all for being here. Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey guys. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice bangs.
Oh, thank you.
So I know we all know each other, but for the people that don't know, I'm wondering maybe if we want to just like do like a quick intros of like name, pronouns, affiliations, your affiliation on this, affiliation in the world. And since we're like going to be talking about Boston today, like how long you guys have been in Boston, or relation to Boston. I can start. So yes, my name is Sarah Shin. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the lead producer of AATAB and also co-founding producing artistic director of AATAB. That it's basically me and Michael Rose Grant. I went to school at Boston University, which is how I got to Boston, and now I am currently in Pennsylvania, but I stay connected. A year later.
I'll go next. I'm Vivian-Liu Somers. She, her, hers. I am the playwright. And I was Mary. I've been in Boston since I went to law school in Boston many, many years ago, before you guys were probably born. And I've been working in the theater community for the last 20 plus years. And I know all of you guys. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm really excited. I'm affiliated with this by writing this. I also work very closely with the Asian American Playwright Collective.
I'll go. Hi, my name is Allison Chiu. My pronouns are she or they. I'm the director of this piece. Congratulations, my actors. You are so great. I'm so proud right now. I know Audrey and Karina, but you all probably don't know me. I just graduated Emerson with BFA in theater with the concentration in directing and dramaturgy. Throughout last year, I was working as the Kudler Producing Engagement Fellow with Arts Emerson. And I also have a small theater collective here based in Boston called Shrunk Stage, amplifying Asian American narratives and transcultural theater. And yeah, I've been in Boston for 4 years. I moved here for Emerson.
I'll go next, I guess. I'm Michelle Guillon, she, her, hers. I've been in the Boston area doing theater for over 25 years. This play is kind of autobiographical in that Viv and I used to go head to head many, many moons ago.
And we still do.
No. Oh, wait, we do. Yeah, we do.
We do.
That's right, we do. Okay,
yeah.
Not necessarily theater, but other things. Anyway, yeah, happy to be here. Very excited to work with this group and with AATAB, but I've worked with many different theater companies throughout Boston. I'm also a proud board member at Stage Source and at Heavy Players, and I do a lot of other things.
I can go next. Congratulations, guys. That was awesome. It's so good to see everybody. Familiar and friendly faces and everyone in the room. Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Audrey. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm an actor, director, stage manager, and arts administrator, community organizer in the city of Boston. I've been here. I also came to attend Emerson College just a little bit longer ago. So I arrived here just about 8 years ago this fall. So it's been a lot of fun. But I am also the community engagement director at the Front Porch Arts Collective, which is Boston's premier Black theater company. So this conversation and everything that the donations are very, very close and near and dear to my heart. So thank you, Sarah and AATAB, for setting this all up. Yeah, excited to talk about everything today.
Hi, I'm Karina. I use she, her, hers. I recently just graduated a couple months ago, or a month from Brandeis University. I studied theater and women's gender and sexuality studies there. And I am primarily an actor, but I've also done a little bit of directing and dramaturgy. I've been doing some theater in the Boston area for a few years, and I've lived in the greater Boston area since I was 7, but the past month is my first time technically being a Boston resident, which is very exciting.
Oh,
Nice.
cool. Nice.
Congrats.
Okay.
And amazing that you were moving during a pandemic. Awesome. So yeah, I just want to say, to start us off, like, when Vivian sent in this play to do, when I first kind of like came up with this idea for the series, and Vivian sent this play, I was just so excited that there was like that it kind of like that I wanted to do this play so that we could have this conversation that I feel like we've always talked about when we're always with each other, but I wanted to kind of put it in a public space and show show it to people that aren't having these conversations, or are now learning learning more about it, kind of sharing it with them. And I think with what's happening right now, like regarding to like Black Lives Matter and just like anti-racist theater in general, I feel like it's even more relevant and perfect to do it right now. So I kind of I want to start. We'll start with the play, and then maybe we'll branch out. So my first question is for Vivian. Can you tell us what inspired you to write this play?
Anger, to be honest. What happened is that I got offered a role by a white woman playwright to play a bumbling, it's like in the script, bumbling Chinese nurse with a bad accent, because I wrote back to her saying, I can't do this role. And she said, but I'm trying to represent the Chinese Communist Party and healthcare system in America. And it's like, okay. I still can't do this role. And we kind of went back and forth, but I was mad because I felt like she was trying to, she's got artistic vision, but I know she was trying to put her, I don't know, like put all this on one character to be like the representative of this, country. And I got mad. So I wrote it. And it was therapeutic. It was really cathartic to write. And I really didn't expect anything to happen from it. But, so this is just icing on the cake. This is amazing.
And then now going into the process, Michelle, Allison, Vivian, like, what was it like how did you feel about this rehearsal process? Getting to kind of like talk through things and pull on all the references.
Yeah, I'll go first. Initially, when I first saw the script, I was like, I so much like past my thoughts, and like, and I started to talk about it in our first rehearsal. That one thing about me is that I'm constantly learning how to talk about exactly what this play is talking about. I felt like when I was reading, I felt like the two characters gave me voice. I'm constantly learning from the theater makers around me, theater makers in this room, how to, just sort of to deal with that anger, and slowly learning, that I felt this, I felt that, and sort of, navigate what do I want to think about it and what do I do with it. So this is, I feel this is the whole process for us to, I feel like our rehearsals are like round table conversations all the time. Is weaved in with our experiences, people that plays and peoples and music that inspires us, and like stories that happened, rehearsal rooms that we've been in, and how sort of. And I feel like the journey of this 10-minute play is a learning curve. And how was our each individual learning curves were like. So that was like, so throughout the rehearsal process, it was cathartic. It was, it felt like a really nice, warm, round table conversation. And every time I just felt empowered. And I felt like this is what this play, this piece was aiming to be, to empower people who are, you know, looking for different ways to say just exactly what this is.
And oh, sorry.
No, I'm just gonna say we shared a lot of stories. We still, I mean, you know, we did share a lot of common stories and frustration.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah.
We laughed a lot too, though.
We did laugh a lot.
Yeah. I found, like, listening into some of the rehearsals, it was just so comforting that, like, we could all have something that we all, like, could rant about, and that, like, I felt like that I was also in a room where everyone, like, just understood it. I didn't have to, like, keep kind of explaining myself. Yeah. Audrey and Karina, I'm curious what your impressions of the play were, or, like, if it reminded you of some audition experiences.
Yeah, I love the comedy of it. I love to, like, just seeing two different Asian American women actresses at different points in kind of their journey and them coming together. I kind of expected the play to be like, because I knew it was in an audition waiting room, I expected it to be kind of more about competition between them. But I loved how, you know, they came together and had this great conversation.
Yeah, I think it was really true to life. I mean, I as a, you know, racially ambiguous South Asian Indian woman, I have a slightly different experience, just like who I'm going up against. You know, it's not quite the same. It's the same competition, but it's more like, as an actress, it's a more wider breadth of roles. But it's true that, like, some of the greatest friends and collaborators I've met have been other incredible racially ambiguous women of color that I've met in audition rooms. So I found that that was really true to life, people that I befriended simply because we were always called in for the same kind of parts. So it's really fun and awesome to hear, Vivian and Michelle, that you guys are still in audition rooms together, because it's cool to think about, like, if you know, were to stick around and try the same places that you would, you know, one of the sad things I think about Boston, and particularly being a young person and start growing up in this industry, is people moving away a lot. So the idea that, like, yes, the frustrations continue and are the same, but the community you build stays too, which I think is sweet. And, like, I love that the play kind of, you know, I love a full circle moment and comes back in on itself and kind of in a meta way sort of starts again.
So that's interesting. So what you're saying is me and Vivian's experience when we were young actresses back in the day, that is still happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're all getting called in the same room for the, although I have to say probably more often now than then.
Yeah. Which is nice. Yeah, but it is interesting too what you were talking about, Vivian, about which parts you will and won't, you know, audition for, participate in. It's something particularly with the racial equity movement that's happening now. As someone who, you know, in the past I have played, you know, a woman in a hijab, like a Black child, a, you know, Native American girl, and, like, I am not, that is not true to any part of my identity, mostly in educational settings, but still it's something, like, as I'm reflecting on with this, that, you know, you're right that there's still, yes, it's happening more, but the conversation in this piece is true that, like, there's not a lot of opportunities. So you just kind of are, like, going into direction, particularly when you're young, and trying to see what fits.
So besides that, I mean, I feel like it's multi-layered with the Asian experience. I mean, I can speak to that because I'm Asian, but, you know, the whole, like, parental approval thing, and I think everybody experiences that, but, you know, I can only call to my own experience, which is, I mean, it was tough to defend. It's tough to defend your life to your parents when you're doing theater. It's, what are you gonna do, teach with that? I mean, you know, I got that a lot, not by my parents per se, just in general, mostly most family that had not exposed to theater at all, you know, so I think we could, all six of us can probably relate to that. The expectation for us. I mean, Vivian, a lawyer, right?
Recovering, but yeah.
Yeah, my dad wanted me to be a lawyer too, but was actually, like, pretty cool about the whole thing. Though I also have the ace in my pocket of having probably the only, like, decently known Indian playwright in my family. Rajiv Joseph is my second cousin, so That
Nice.
made it a whole heck of a lot easier. So we're very thankful to him for that. Because when I was touring colleges, we saw Bengal Tiger on Broadway. So I was like, oh, okay, you could maybe do this.
Maybe you could do this, yeah.
Yeah, but if that hadn't happened, I imagine it would be, much more in the same vein of, the conversation here.
I mean, part of this, the inspiration for this was also just going in for an audition and seeing like a sea of Asian American women, all the same age range or something. And I mean, it wasn't, it's just funny. And yes, Michelle and I have known each other for years because we did go for the same roles. She always got the role, but it was always, no, but it's fun. And I can say that, I've said this to Michelle, but the most supportive audition room I've ever been in is when we had callbacks for Viet Gone. And it was great because it was like, I don't know, 20 Asian American actors of different ages and things and genders and gender identities. And it was great because everybody was so supportive. And it's like, where are you from? And what do you do? And all, like everybody really wanted to know more about what roles people were doing or what theater groups they were working with. It was so supportive. It was a really great experience. And it was also like the genesis of knowing a lot of a lot of people in AATAB and elsewhere.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
reminds me. Oh,
No, sorry. I just want to say thank you. That's nice to hear.
yes. I was gonna. I've made me there's such a difference. Of the few things that I've gone to audition for, in New York too, particularly when it's like the big open calls and such. The Christina Chen also said best audition room I've been in.
Yeah.
But there's auditions that I've met Christina at, and also like I see Christina's name, like that she showed up earlier when I remember K-pop, we've both gone there, and then also Hadestown.
Oh.
And there's such a difference of rooms or like audition calls that are like specifically Asian, looking for Asian actors, and then there's the rooms that are looking for POC and general actors, and then Hamilton too, and then the roles that are like any ethnicity, and it ends up being mostly white people still showing up and taking up a big amount of the lists and slots being seen. But that's that's a thing.
It's very different from when Michelle and I were starting out. I mean, I still remember, it was like 20 years ago, I auditioned for a show and the director called me and said, I can't, you were the best person to audition for the role, but I can't cast you because it's the 1950s and you wouldn't fit in. It's like, and at the time I was like, oh, that's nice. I mean, I was like, now it's like, I'm pissed off.
Because Asian people didn't exist in the 1950s. I totally forgot about that part.
Yeah, well, not in this little world. I mean, in his little world, his vision of this world, they didn't, and that point, there wasn't Hamilton. There wasn't, there wasn't all this, cross racial casting and things. But now like Hamilton has really kind of opened doors for a lot of people, and it's not, I mean, there's still a lot that are closed, but there are more doors.
With the that reminds me of one of the questions that we had like a list prepared. What do you like now that there are roles there are slightly more opportunities and different, more complex roles out there, but still there are other shows that are still being produced, like King and I, Thoroughly Modern Millie. I'm trying to think of like all the musicals, like they're all still out there. Avenue Q, and they're like they've granted us all these opportunities, and they're fun to do, but there's also still that like hint of problematic history in there, and I'm curious what you guys think of like those shows still happening, and also like the having to deal with the choice of still auditioning for it or like having to take on that opportunity.
I have to say, maybe this is being naive when I was younger, and I tell actors now, audition for everything. Yeah. Obviously stuff that plays that specifically talk about race, then you have to, respect the theme or the story. Like Clybourne Park, right? You have to have African Americans in there, But I always say if there's a role that speaks to you personally, that you must play, that you must tell that story, I say go for it, whether you're appropriate for the part or not. I did that blindly for years. And then I moved to Boston and I did it blindly again. And there, I was telling someone the other day, I felt like I was walked to the door and kind of patted on the head, like, oh, bless your heart.
Cute. Yeah.
Bless your heart. I mean, I wasn't literally treated like that, but that's how I felt. And I was actually patted once on the thigh because I was, sitting next to the director. He came up on the stage after I did an audition and he said, "You're really good, but we really don't have a part for you." And he kind of patted me and I took it, in those days we took it.
Me too.
And ever since then, I look back on experiences like that. It makes me angry that I took it, because even though that's on them, it's also on me and whoever conditioned me to just take it. But I always say, go to what calls you. If it's Blanche DuBois, who cares? Of course, written by a white guy, but you know what I'm saying.
I want to say that I was so excited. I know Karina was in Pacific Overtures last summer, last year. Right. And it was last spring, and it was so wonderful. I mean, we were at Joy Luck Club together, and it was great to see an Asian all Asian cast on stage, and to see you guys did a great job. But then I was thinking about it, it's like, I mean, old white guys wrote this stuff, it's not really, and it was written in the 70s too, so it was a while ago, but it's like, I want to see Asian American stories by Asian stories by Asians, written by Asians, not, and you guys did a great job, but it was also like, just, it just kind of felt wrong that you're listening to like a white guy's version of Japan and, Imperial Japan.
Yeah. Well, to add to that, I'm looking at Lisa. Hi, Lisa. I'm looking at her question. It's exhausting to go for stuff when people aren't ready to cast someone like you that looks like you. But honestly, I think that's changing. That's finally changing, and I'm hoping it's not a fad this time. I'm trying so hard not to say the F word, guys. But it's about time. And it's time to have these awkward conversations. It's time to address the privilege, the assumptions, the way we're referred to, right? I was referred to recently as part of a white group of women. I don't want to get specific, but I was with a white group of women, and I was referred to as one of them, as the group, and someone had to point out that Misha's not white. So it's interesting. And then I went, I told a black friend of mine about that experience. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. And someone kind of called them out on it. And it's an awkward conversation. I should have said, "I'm not white. Why are you referring to me as such?" Because I think it's easy to have those conversations with people that you don't know. But when it's your friends that you love dearly, it's like, how do I? And I'm saying this because I'm trying to tell myself I have to remember to address it when it's happening, not sit on it and seethe later. I'm encouraging everyone, all of us here, to try to remember to speak up when you can, and address that. Anyway, I was talking to my black friend, and she said, a lot of people see things as literally black and white. And she said, I'll never forget this, because she said it last week, and it's been working on me. And she goes, "We're black and they're white, and everyone else belongs to them." And I was like, what? And she just let me sit with that for a while. And it's not a literal thing. It's not people don't go out and act like they own you. It's just this sort of thing everyone is sort of used to, I think. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and it is, in fact, I think in some places a codified thing. I remember being a freshman at Emerson College, and I wasn't an acting major, but I could have auditioned for shows at Emerson Stage and didn't end up really doing any shows with the college for a whole variety of reasons. But one of which was my first semester. I was talking with one, to my knowledge, the only Indian professor on staff, Sunil, and he was saying to us, he had made this performance art piece. There was like a little gallery in one of the studios, and his whole piece was all about how at conservatory institutions, including Emerson, it is common for non-white students who are not Black to be granted what is called honorary white status for the casting of shows. And so what that told me as a non-Black, newly like becoming comfortable with identifying as a woman of color, was that there was not necessarily an interest for me to, you know, be in those spaces. So I stuck to student theater and the places I knew and the people I knew and the art makers. And I regret none of it. Like it was I did end up being in an Emerson Stage show after I had actually already graduated. It had to be brought back. So I have kind of like a weird perspective on this because yes, I auditioned some, but I also get begged because they do not have anybody else to be in things, which is like a really common occurrence for me. That's how I've gotten most of my roles, actually. Which is not to say that, you know, don't cast me, but it's just, yeah, I would love to work more. But it is one of those things, particularly because I was a directing and arts management student and I wasn't pursuing that full time then and shortly after graduating. Yeah, it's definitely tough to kind of figure out, and you know, back to Lisa's question about how do we kind of change this in the Boston theater community. I mean, is always, and what we had talked about a little bit about problematic roles a while back. I'm just like out here to have other, you know, people of color get a check. Like that is like my whole thing. Like, you know, if you need to get the equity points so you have health insurance on the tour of Miss Saigon, like go with God, get your check. You know, like, is it like soul sucking? And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But like, if you know, there are certain rules in unions that you have to work. So, you know, find the work first and foremost, feed yourself. You are the most important. But then also, I think when we hire, you know, women of color, Asian women, people of color, Asian women, Asian people to direct shows, to hire them to write shows, produce their work, then you will start seeing, like, I am most frequently brought into the room by other people of color. Like my mentor at Emerson was a Black professor, and he was always trying to get me to be in this and be in that, even when it was, you know, maybe not racially appropriate, but like his heart was super in the right place, trying to get me work. So I've always felt that, you know, in communities of color, people really love and support each other and get each other paid, which is the whole thing. That's the whole, you know, surviving and working thing. So I think that's the struggle that predominantly what institutions are having, is they have a hard time envisioning a world where they can actually hire majority people of color. Like I know several institutions that are local to, you know, Boston. You have your artistic director who's white, probably directs 2 shows a year, always, anytime, does not give that up, if not more. And then they have 2 to 3 friends who are usually also white, male, who would direct every season and have either a written or unspoken agreement that they'll always get to direct. So once you start breaking down those, and like it's tough because it's your friends, like, but you know, and I'm not saying that these incredible directors don't deserve to have work. They do, but like so do I. Like I also have to say that like I deserve to have work, and like I deserve to work at these places. So I think that's like how I would kind of...
Also, you have a unique perspective.
Right. Yeah.
You know? I think perspective is so important. And we see a lot of work that is from the white male perspective. We're used to that. But then when we see a woman of color who's, you know, directed something like Summer Williams or Dawn Simmons, you actually hear and see their perspective, and it's so refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the takeaways I hope from this play is also write your own stories. I'm going to shout out to Christina Chan, who's a friend of ours, who always said that, like, write your own stories, because that's how your voice is going to be heard. because otherwise it's like you're doing old white guys versions of what might be your story, you know.
Yeah, I think building off of what Audrey was saying about kind of, older, more problematic shows like South Pacific and The King and I and Miss Saigon, which is not actually that old, it's just problematic. I think my perspective on that has really changed in the past few years. I think like
Same.
it's starting to get into theater. You're, especially as a woman, you're told like you're in competition with so many other people who can do this role just as well as you. You have to like grab at and like capitalize on any advantage you can get. And so I was like, yes, like Miss Saigon, my jam, South Pacific, my jam. And while I do, the way I feel now is I definitely do not fault other Asian American actors who take those roles. Like Audrey said, you need to eat, that's important. But at the same time, I also have to think about that check, like you said, that those actors are getting, how much bigger is the check that the white director and the white producers and writers are getting. And like, I think overall for me, the quote unquote representation and work that it is providing to Asian American actors is not worth to me. The upholding of the status quo of the American theater and who it's really supporting in the long run.
There's some really, I don't know, Sarah, if you probably aren't monitoring this, but there's 2 different questions in the Q&A about on Zoom about parent expectations. So I don't know
my
if
God,
you
I
were
didn't even notice.
actually going to talk about that. I just got a little ping. Like,
I might thank you. No, yeah,
No
I
worries.
think let's look at this first one from Alice. Jillian articulates her mother's expectations for her during the play. Viv, what made you include this aspect of Jillian's character, and why is it important to this story?
So I put it in because it's true. I mean, there are people that just really, I mean, it's not just an Asian thing, though I think it might be more of an immigrant thing, because it's like, we fought to come here to give you better opportunity, and you're gonna, like put on your own makeup and go on stage or something. I think it's just part of, I think it's just, maybe it was like cramming a lot of things in the play, but I think it's part of like the experience that people would have. It's like, I don't really feel like I can tell somebody what I'm, I can't tell my parents really what I want to do. Like they think I'm going to live this life that they have for me, but I don't really want to do that. And so it's kind of like, you have to, especially when you're young, you have to really choose, like, do I go down this path where there's a lot of people looking for for not a lot of money, or do you go down something that might be more, and everybody has to make that choice.
And as I've gotten older, I've really learned to appreciate their perspective and why they worried. And a lot of, I think a lot of us can probably say this about our parents or grandparents, that it took a lot for them to get here. So they wanted us to be successful, and theater is not in their mind of success.
Right.
That's not. So the whole lawyer, doctor, nurse thing, is really prevalent in my family, and I've grown to really appreciate why they were so worried. I didn't see it as worry, of course. I saw it as, don't tell me what to do. I think we all go through that, but. And maybe any immigrant can identify with that, quite honestly. And some had a hard time, a really especially hard time getting here. And the struggle.
And still do.
To make it. And still do, right, exactly.
Karina and Allison, like I'm curious, like as people that just graduated, like what what is like your parents supporting of the theater, and like now with like pandemic, like what is that like to kind of enter into this industry now?
Yeah.
Or if your parents are worried, extra worried, or
Oh
less
my
worried?
God.
Right now, like in the past 3 months, I've worried more than my parents does ever. Because I remember when I first started, my parents had this big long, like 4 years. It took them 4 years to understand what a BFA theater is. Like I have to demonstrate from my everyday life, like what it is, like what it means to be, you know, working on this, what it means to be, you know, working on something around the arts, but being so busy all the time. But I guess one other thing that I was talking about during the rehearsal is that over the past few months, I've been thinking so much about like choices, just life choices. Like, why do I have to be making art? You know, like, and like feeling all of a sudden feeling everybody else so needed, but like except for me, I feel so unnecessary right now. Like, and how like, but despite all that, going through all that, and the end of the day, still coming back to, you know, like to theater. And what is the one thing that I like? The one thing that I like that I can't leave theater because I'm just so happy. And maybe my parents saw that, you know? Maybe my parents saw that when I'm doing theater, I'm like the happiest person. When I'm talking about theater, my eyes are shining. But probably they don't understand any of them, but they know when they know me. They know when I'm happy. And then they slowly starting to learning to say yes to, you know, maybe it's at the end of the day, we fight all our lives just for you to be happy, for us to see that light in your eyes.
Yeah, I think my family's very supportive. My parents are they were born in the U.S., which I think makes me third generation. I'm never sure, but yeah, they're very supportive. I do think it took them a while to get that theater could realistically be a career. My whole family is like big classical music people, and I think that's kind of viewed as like the highest form of art, but they definitely appreciate theater too. I think for a while it was just like, there are no jobs in musical theater, like why would you want to major in that? And I ended up majoring in theater and women's gender and sexuality studies, two of the least employable majors in the world, and they're okay with it. I think they are definitely right now. I've definitely been more concerned the past 3 months than I have been in a while. We're all relieved that I have a regular job right now, but yeah, I think families hopefully figure out how to be supportive, and how at least I've been very happy and lucky with my family.
That reminds the other day, well, two things. Now, me and my mom joke that about me going to law school. Like she's like, it's never too late. Like,
I said that as well.
she's like, I don't know, you might change your mind. Do you? And I'm like, okay. But then at the same time, she's also joked with me that like it's her new dream for me to speak Korean at the Tony Awards, of like saying that like thank you to her in Korean. So there's so much pressure going on.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah, the high expectations are definitely consistent across the immigrant parents.
Yeah.
For sure. I can definitely relate to a lot of what you were all saying. I think for me, I'm biracial, so having a white mom helped for sure, because she signed me up for dance lessons and let me do the summer plays and things, and she was an English major, so she let me be good at writing and language arts and social studies and all those soft kind of courses, which were always my favorite. So that definitely helped. But I will say that to the nature of the question, which was to ask, you know, like which generation is most supportive. So I guess I'm second gen, making my dad first gen because moved here when he was a little kid. I think we shouldn't necessarily hold ourselves to those stereotypes that like, yes, even though like this is a universal experience we've had, which is difficulty, I think that's probably true of a lot of people's parents. I will also say that my dad is by far my biggest patron, if you will, has definitely paid to see me in more things than any other person. I also get him lots of comp tickets when I can. But one thing that I've noticed that immigrant parents love is like showing off their kids. And so I will say to Asian parents watching, if your kids do theater, it's a great opportunity for them to show off. They're probably natural show-offs by nature, and they get to look really smart and beautiful and eloquent all the time. My dad is still a subscriber at a theater I used to work at, and because I used to work there, the entire staff knows him by first name. He doesn't even have to give his name when he goes to get his tickets. So like there is like, it's very small, like local celebrity kind of status, but in Cambridge, Massachusetts only. But in that world, he works there, and so he gets to kind of show off to his coworkers and his friends, and likes being invited to things, has no trouble now walking up to like kind of big time actors and directors and introducing himself. So I think that like that's to say that, you know, maybe if he wasn't 100% supportive or incredibly anxious at the start, you know, one, it works out okay, and two, you know, it's I try to sell people on when trying to let their kids go to theater school and whatever, which who knows now with college being virtual and all that. But I will say, pre-corona, I was always like, well, they'll be really good at like XYZ, public speaking. I did an arts administration degree, so actually I have a lot of really marketable business skills. You know, so things like that, I guess, is what I usually say.
That's, yeah, very good on a resume. Cool. Oh, cool. I have I want to jump into another question that we have here. That on this prepped list here, not on Q&A. I want to ask what you guys think of what's happening in Boston right now. I remember like 2018 to 2019 season had many shows, and that inspired Asian AATAB and API Arts Network and AAPC and BAF to kind of all come together to host a reflect and refresh like forum and celebration, because there was just so many shows to celebrate. And I remember at the time really hoping that it would continue, and that it would not be a trend, a 1-year thing. And I personally feel like it kind of did like die down a little bit. But I'm curious like how you guys are feeling about just, yeah, the Boston theater scene in general, of like where we feel like issues are, or what is missing, what we can bring more to it. I know there's a lot. There's a lot to say, but
it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It was a really great almost couple of years. And then the seasons were announced, and it was like, what happened? You know. Certainly became more prevalent in movies and television, on all levels there. I mean, it's everywhere. And then the Boston theater scene, it felt like it was a bit of a fad, honestly. I don't know. I'm wondering if, you know, whoever selects the season, there's not a person of Asian descent, or, you know, because
a POC of all.
Right. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I'm assuming. I actually don't know.
I mean, it just highlights the importance of front porch and Fresh Ink and Open Theater, and, you know, all these great theater groups, and Company One, and all these great theater groups that really promote diverse voices and support emerging playwrights, and try to give that different perspective. And I mean, it's not the mainstream, you know, theater like the big houses, but it's at least getting a start for a lot of people, you know, whether directing, acting.
Yeah, I think for me, as much as I love seeing plays by Asian American playwrights produced, and I want more of that, I think as actors and directors, we also shouldn't need that symbolic all Asian show to be working.
Right.
And that speaks to a larger problem if those are the only shows that we're getting hired for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's definitely, there has been not large, but like a decent amount of leadership change that has allowed for a lot of people of color to come to Boston as artistic and executive directors recently, which is fantastic. You know, with the exception of Diane Paulus, which has a whole other meaning now, there isn't the Asian representation in Boston at a leadership level, at an associate level, at any kind of artistic level, just simply isn't there. that's just kind of like, it's just not there. I've never even met a member of a literary team at a theater company that was Asian American. Not even one. Maybe an intern, but not a paid member of staff. So that's a huge dearth and a huge lost opportunity, given especially how many Asian American people call Boston, Greater Boston, their home. So I mean, yeah, it's definitely a tremendous issue. I think this is one of my biggest fears of post-coronavirus theater, is that, you know, we've already had 2 full productions of Angels in America announced for next season, and like, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful plays, but we can already see major theaters returning to really safe work in an attempt to have box office success because of a loss of earned revenue, which, of course, major issue. Arts are uniquely impacted by the financial crisis caused by COVID. But my fear, particularly working with Front Porch, is as we try to come back, you know, where is the place for the plays that we really want to do? You know, it's not like anyone is asking us to put on Dreamgirls right now or anything like that. Not that we shouldn't. I do love that show. But it's just tough to kind of see even like controversial plays kind of get pushed to the wayside, or things that were postponed now being canceled in favor of, you know, the Bright Star of the world, the, you know, Angels in America, all the other kind of like big shows that people want to hold down their season, which of course are necessary, but I worry that it's not going to chip into the like white people part of the pie. It's going to chip into the everybody else part of the pie, you know.
Yeah,
and a rising tide lifts all boats. We have to advocate for all of those, I think. But yeah, it's going to be definitely tricky.
I mean, but to Karina's point, like, so you do Angels America, you do it with an all-black cast, or a POC cast,
or mixed,
or mixed, or whatever. I mean, you know, Diane Paulus is bringing 1776 to Broadway with, you know, with all, you know, I think all female actually. POC
yeah, all
cast.
female, mostly POC. Yeah.
But then there are organizations like AATAB and AAPC, you know, and out here trying to, you know, make a place at the table.
Right.
I find like in what I've been able to do so far and the people I've met with, like there is a community out there. It's just that we're all, it's smaller levels, smaller sized organizations, and also all of these leaders have like 3 jobs and are like working at multiple organizations at once. So there's not enough. There's just need, like, I guess, yeah, there needs to be more people in leadership that are able to manage it healthily and not like without overworking themselves.
I mean, good Dawn Simmons can't do it all, you know? Like, that's what I say all the time. I was like, I love her. She does everything. There has to be, you know, there's got to be other people stepping it up, because I work for the only Black woman who is an artistic and executive director in Boston, and she is both of those things for different organizations. And that's at an incredibly high level of production for Stage Force and for Front Porch. So it's just, more resources.
I'm looking at a comment from Christina Chan. She's referring to Linda Chin Workman.
Yes,
that's true. Yeah. She was.
I felt like she was our, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in the last, since that, there is not. But yeah, that was the
yeah.
That
Linda was here too earlier.
Yeah, Linda was in there. It is my goal to take on a more leadership role, both in community theater and professional theater, as much as I can.
Campaign begins now. Hire Michelle.
You know, just to lend a voice and a perspective that's not well represented, I think, you know.
I'm just thinking a lot about my past, the past year I was working at Arts Emerson under Susan Chisholm. And my experience working with her and being so like sitting in her office and just working with her and being like, oh, like all the programs and the events that she was able to put together and be able to help that, and how much just reflecting and just echoing what Audrey said, how like basically 90% of my work opportunities were referred by her, because she you know, she saw
awesome.
like something in me, and she was like, until I met her, I wasn't realizing that like there's possibilities and there's like so much potential to the work I do. But I was thinking so much about in our Summer Since next season, there's a show from China called Constellations that I was able to, you know, connect with the playwright. I was able to, you know, to hear how to see how this whole season selection, especially for this piece, came together. And I guess ultimately what I felt like was that, like, even though I was like because I knew the playwright and I know everybody, like a lot of my friends know that show. And I was like constantly advocating for that show. But I realized that even though I was advocating, Susan was advocating, if the artistic director, if the higher level administrators wasn't really into the idea, it wouldn't be able to make it into the season. And then I was, you know, thinking so much about, like, it was just it was a split second decision for a lot of people, but it shaped. Maybe that was the one show that I was looking at. I was, you know, looking at everybody's season programming and just like looking up for that show. But how much, like mentally, how much weight did I gave them? Like, did it took them to make that decision? And I got to see that decision-making process. And that moment had a huge impact on me. And I was just like sitting there thinking, like, I don't think this is so important for you, but I just love the show. Yeah.
Wait, that also reminds me of a time last summer when I was in Three Musketeers at Greater Boston Stage up in Stoneham, and it was directed by Dawn Simmons, co-produced by
Does it all.
There she is again. And that just being like the most amazing group of people to all be together and to be able to like be in a show that like where it was kind of just like, it's like we're just the concept is that we're all POC and that's the world, and that's we are princes, we are prince, what is it, we're royalty, we are knights, we can fight, we're musketeers. And I remember this one of, I don't remember the position that this person had, but she was like a part of leadership at the company and was kind of at a like post-show event was saying like, here's this donor that like was able to like provide so much money to help us put on a risk, take such a risk with this production. And just the idea that our show was a risk for programming. Stuck with me.
You just deflated.
It was like, I thought it was like, it was gonna like, and I thought it was innovative and it just like not a risk. It was like what there should be more of to kind of keep moving forward and being more innovative. But yeah, that was a thought that has stuck with me of like where people are at. And then I want to connect that to a question that Lisa just put in here, asking how do we feel about these like white narrative stories being cast with all POC or all Black, all Latinx, all Asian. Do you feel like it's accommodating to do you feel like it's accommodating to the white audiences using our voices and diminishing the history that has happened to BIPOC people like Hamilton, Moby Dick, 1776?
I'd like to answer the first part. In the last few years, I've really strived to direct pieces that are written by people of color because I'm so interested in what they have to say. And then what I end up discovering is they're just human. You know, their human struggles, their foibles, their stories, their relationships, they're all relatable. They're just unique to whatever race they're writing for, like Joy Luck Club or Fences. And I've learned so much by directing a different perspective other than Chekhov or Tennessee Williams, or whom I love. I love them. And what I find is that I love them all. I love them all. Because a great story is a great story. But definitely stories written by people of color are just not as produced. But I'm going to keep trying to fight to have those kinds of stories produced. I think it's important. I mean, it reflects what America really is. We're so used to the white narrative, and we have to think outside of that, instead of Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare and casting whoever you want in Shakespeare, but why do you do that only there? Why do you do that?
Yeah. I think that's casting by POC in, traditional white narratives. It just shows you the universality of the story. So you have Chekhov and you have Shakespeare or whatever, and you have whoever you want to cast. Just cast whoever you want, and then you get the best person as opposed to the person that fits that, that preconceived notion. I think it's fine, but I agree that I think there should be more stories of people of color or marginalized audiences that have their voice heard.
And what's amazing is that there are audiences for those plays.
There are.
And people were surprised.
Yeah.
I think for me, this question has been plaguing me a lot. I got into a little bit of hot water on the theater folks of color. Not a lot of hot water, but it could have been more, but I decided to back off on it. For saying that I was excited for 1776 because people were like, who is this for? And the answer is me. As you can see, there's actually a modified Betsy Ross flag behind me. So 1776 was part of the reason that I'm allowed to do theater, because we watched it every year on the 4th of July, and I still did just recently. And yes, it's incredibly white and all men really in the original production, but I think what Diane Paulus is trying to do there is color conscious casting, which I think is a much better way than the whole colorblind, because we see color, we just do, and it informs our choices and it informs how we view characters, and it would be disingenuous of me to say that that's not the case for every single person, myself included. So with that, from what I've heard, she has been looking at developing a Congress that resembles the Squad that's currently in Congress. And so I think that idea is really interesting, because that is a true story that we're watching unfold on the American stage right now. I will also say, Michelle, when I went to go see Proof and it was an Asian American cast and you had directed, it was a really transformative moment for me and for my family, because that's a play that I've always loved, and I had to do in acting classes 100 times, but being like, oh, but you won't actually ever be in this, like, just play this, whatever. So to see, Lisa totally up there working it, everybody, a phenomenal cast, that was, to me, so impactful. So I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think it's, I actually get a lot of work, like, redoing classics and being like, oh my God, you can put only people of color in Coriolanus? Crazy. And, like, I'm happy to have that work. I want to keep doing that work. I also love the classic, but I do also kind of love everything. So it's kind of like, how do we intentionally, we can't ignore the conversation that's happening, even in a play that's supposed to take place in like 1620 or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's what I would say on that. I think it's really interesting to hear the debate about Hamilton and if it is harmful to people of color. But what I keep coming back to is like all the little videos that are coming up on Twitter. I don't know if you all saw this, of the little Asian girl watching Philippa Sue sing and saying, oh, that's me. Like, that is me. Like, she's just convinced that it's her. And like, that is just so like pure. And like, we need that. Some little boy was asking if Peggy had a girlfriend, a little young, racially ambiguous boy. And so like, that's the kind of stuff like people need to see that. I think the bigger lesson for Hamilton is to make everything accessible, film everything, and put all of it on Disney Plus. So I'll keep my subscription,
Yes. I want to say too, like, coming from an acting perspective, like, there is a part, like, I get a little bit of joy. It's still rooted in, like, I'm still playing. I get a little bit of joy when I got cast in something and I was like auditioning amongst white actors. And to be able to like get cast when they weren't thinking about race or they weren't looking to do Asian, like, that to me feels like a win, even though it's a winning in the system of white supremacy culture and like of like white being the norm and all that. So I remember I was cast in a show. I was cast in Footloose in high school, and I cried when I got to play one of the lead girl's best friends, but I did not cry when I got accepted into college. Like, it was just more emotional for me in that way. And like even to this day, my parents ask me like how I was able to get cast in Our Town as Emily Webb. They don't like understand what the director saw in me. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that too. But I also I do think that there are certain shows that like also just need to be played by white people, and kind of just like we need to leave it at the way that it was traditionally done. There are some shows that I question like a certain being played by certain races because of the different. It might go into territory that you just don't need to talk about. If that makes sense.
But yeah, I will say there was a question that we prepped that I have been struggling to think of what a different dream role is, but this was just always the one as a kid. I always wanted to play Lila Inez as a kid in Hairspray. Always wanted to play her. I will never play her, and that like has to be okay because like Hairspray is a story about white people and black people, and like that is okay. As a kid, I didn't know. I was like, hey, she's kind of light skinned and looks like me, and I saw the movie and I thought, she's getting more acting than I am as a child. So, you know, for me that at the time, but like, yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, Sarah. I mean, frequently in Front Porch, the conversation is like, we do actually cast a lot of white people because we do a lot of plays about race, but like, who's going to play a racist cop? A white person. Like, there's just no room for us to be like, oh, we need more POC contracts. Like, the stories we're going to tell, there is, you know, there are white characters for a reason.
I just want to go back to something. Yeah, it was my show, but I want to talk about proof. Only from the perspective that when I was doing research for that show, a theater company in Chicago did it with an all-black cast. So what I discovered is the impact of what happens to those people in that play when they are Asian or when they are black. For example, the scene where the girl calls the cops on the guy that is stealing her dad's things. That has a different impact on a black woman calling the police on a black man in her house versus a white version of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And a recent friend of mine was doing, what were they doing? Long Day's Journey into Night, all black cast, right? And I asked him, I said, are they going to do it as if they're not going to address race at all? Because, you know, the script doesn't have to refer to it, but there's cultural things, you know? Like there were cultural things that we end up mixing a lot in proof, like leaving their shoes at the door. It's not in the script, but it was our little thing, and it became a thing between two characters, like you're going to leave your shoes at the door, right? Like, kind of a look, you know what I mean? So I wondered in Long Day's Journey into Night if there was opportunity for stuff like that as an all-black cast. I wondered what the impact would be, and I said, are you guys addressing that? He goes, oh, at the time, he said, I'm not sure. I don't know what the outcome was ultimately, but...
So I directed that play, so I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah, I love
Long Day's
that
Journey
play.
into the Night was awesome. I wasn't originally director. I ended up directing the Zoom production, but that's probably Dominic, if I know Dominic well. Yes. That's my actor. They're such an incredible team. Yeah, there are moments that, I mean, it's an Irish family, so there was like some script changes because they were like, you know, we're going to go back to Ireland and all this stuff. And then our research, there were wealthy black people living on in Massachusetts. You know, you have the entire wealthy black community still that's on Martha's Vineyard. So there was definitely like research, and if you saw the production there, the E-production, I guess, there were like photos that Dan Walters, who was our lead actress and producer, found from that time period of wealthy black families. So it was all based in truth. For me, the biggest moment was James Tyrone, the father, talks about meeting Edwin Booth, and Edwin Booth saying, this man played Othello better than I ever could. Like, for me, that was like the moment that I was like, we have a real opportunity to like make this. And it was a black family. I mean, they are a Black family. Like they're, you know, all the names are, you know, we didn't have to change any names. There's no need for any of that. And so, yeah, it was definitely, there were definitely things that changed because it was a Black family. And like there were certain things that were difficult. Like they reference, all the writers they reference are white men because that's what people were reading, you know, at turn of the century. And there wasn't really an opportunity for us to, like, we can't quite, you know, we can take things out, we can't really put things in because of playwrights and respect to playwrights, of course. Yeah. But yeah, that was a really, really, particularly having done the rehearsal process up and until like the second week of June, it's a really, really special time. And we're still hoping to do that. Like, come see it whenever theater happens again. We're hoping to do it sometime.
I love that play. I would love to see that perspective.
I love that play too. Another classic that is very long that people were like, what are we going to do with it now? But yeah, there is also a history of Black characters playing those roles, though, or Black actors playing those roles. I'm
seeing a thread of, like, if you have, like, a POC director that has a vision that, like, you can kind of find smart ways to continue doing these plays by white men if we can't do a new play by a person of color.
Yes. Hire people of color. That's the only thing I want.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanna I have like 2 more questions actually. Very quick, I think. But I wanted to kind of like reflecting on kind of how things have changed and how there are more opportunities. And when it comes to directing these new like productions in more nuanced, sophisticated ways, I like come to this thought of like, have stereotypes gone away or have they just evolved a little bit? And I want to ask this to Karina because Karina and I almost got to direct we almost got to work on a play, but it got canceled because of the pandemic.
Oh no!
It's going to be all about.
We had to work on it a little bit.
It was her thesis, right? Yeah.
Yeah, my thesis was going to be the play called Asia Amnesia by Sunmi Shomei.
Ooh.
Yeah. I would love if you can like talk about what you've learned on that play and what you think of like, because also that play was from 10 years ago and was even like while we were working on it, we were saying it was kind of dated. So I'm like, what you're thinking, I'm curious of your thoughts of kind of stereotypes over time.
Yeah, so I love that play. I miss it so much. It's great. It's a series of basically vignettes that are about representations of Asian women in American film and theater. And they come at it from a bunch of different perspectives, and there's all kinds of like weird stuff. And like, it's in conversation with other pieces of theater, which I love. But there's one, I believe it was written in 2008. And it's so 2000s, like the references are like extremely 2000s. And there's one scene that's, so it's Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz is the name of the musical. She's singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. The cast is 4 Asian women, so it's an Asian woman playing Dorothy. And there are these Asian stereotypes who start entering and upstaging her while she's trying to sing this song. And the stereotypes in the play are like, they're like dragon lady, rice paddy planter, and Japanese tourist. And we were like dragon lady, okay, we know what that is. But like the other 2, we were like, that's just, I don't even know where they're coming from with that. So we changed it. We were doing like a nerdy character and like an edgy Asian girl with like a purple streak in her hair were the ones we went with. So yeah, wow. I think the images and the stereotypes definitely do evolve over time and get more kind of covert in their racism. One of the biggest things I learned from my thesis was that representations are so influenced by what's going on with U.S. military interests and politics and stuff like that. Just for example, like the yellow peril, like image of the dangerous Asian person. The bad Asian switched back and forth from like China when there were first, when Chinese immigration was starting and there was the Chinese Exclusion Act, that was the bad Asian, and then it switched to Japan during World War II.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's so dependent on what's going on. And I am obviously right now we're seeing anti-Asian racism, and I'm anticipating, not with excitement, the images that might come out of that. And yeah, I think sexuality is another thing that's always kind of in these images in different ways. Like there used to be kind of the dichotomy of like the dragon lady / versus lotus blossom, one of whom is kind of hypersexual and evil, and the other is like virginal but an object of sexual desire. And I think now we still see hypersexuality or sexuality in general in a lot of representations of Asian women, but it's a little more blurry than that dichotomy. So yeah, it's always changing, but still racist.
Yes, still the same.
Yes. And my last question, I kind of want it to be like a quick thing from everyone. I want this to be the last one because I think we should. But with everything that we've kind of like talked about so far, and of like the issues that we see, and like I feel like we are all people that have some ideas and some solutions. So like everyone should be hiring us at some point, I wish. For something. But I want, like, if there's a play, a show, a role, or something that like you guys want to see produced, or something that you want to do, and I want, like, if someone can name like something that should happen, a show or a play.
Cambodian rock band happened in Lowell, but it should happen in Boston.
It should happen again. It really should.
It was
It really
great,
should.
yeah.
That's what came to my mind. I was like,
Mine is Indian Paleo, by Jacqueline Bauhaus, who is, as far as I know, the only biracial young Indian woman playwright of note. Did Mountain Boats.
Yes, yeah, that happened at MTC.
And hasn't really happened anywhere else.
Okay,
So,
somebody got it. I also recently read this play called White Pearl by Anjali Felicia King. That's about these 5 women that work at a makeup company.
I auditioned for it.
You did?
Yes,
Oh my
What?
God.
what was that?
it's such a good play.
Oh,
Audition for it. Yeah.
They get called out for posting a video, a like advertisement that they're selling a whitening skin cream, and they get called out for an ad
I heard about
commercial
this
where
play.
there's black
Yeah.
face in it. I read it and I want to do it now. But
Do you have a copy you can send me?
yeah.
No, because I read a review about that somewhere. Yeah.
I think I want to see that Karina's play that you guys are going to do.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Asian Amnesia, yes.
We have dreams of doing it at some point in the future.
Yes. I also wonder if there's like a part 2 to it that we also devise, of like covering 2008 to 2020.
I've been thinking so much. I'm constantly thinking about Celine Song. I'm constantly thinking about endlings. That run at New York Theater Workshop was cut short, right? I just like wholeheartedly wanted to see it taken somewhere else. I want to see it again. You know, I want to go to New York Theater Workshop and purchase the script because I want to support it, and I just want to keep seeing that show. Like, that changed, and Links changed my life. I think there's more people need to see it. Yep.
I will also say, for plays that I'm not sure exist, more Indian plays that aren't centered around Hinduism. As an Indian Catholic, I know none of them, so if you could send them to me, that would be great.
I will start looking right now.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Okay. Wow, we've talked, we've chatted, we've laughed. I don't know how to finish this.
Yeah.
Just thank you guys so much for participating in this panel, and thank you audience members that have stuck around and for your comments and all your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're all here and all like always down to talk more about it, I'm sure, so that we can figure out how to make things better. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Congratulations
Thank you.
again, Vivian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.